Just to track back everything we've done so far, we started with this.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
In this video, I'm going to show you how I took a mix that was barely peaking at -9 dB and increased the perceived loudness in just 4 steps without destroying the dynamic range before ever reaching for a limiter and eventually pushing it up to -8 LUFS. Also, by the end of the video, I have a surprise tip for you, so you might want to stick around to the end to not miss out on anything. Yo guys, I'm B-Man and you're welcome to the video. First, let me play you the dry mix. Obviously, it's going to sound very low.
I'm kinda upset that you only think about me when you care about you. I'm kinda upset that you only care about me when you think about you. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
I'm going to keep the mastering chain very minimal. I've realized over time that the more processing that goes on into the mastering chain, the more it loses not only dynamic range, but the natural feeling of the mix as well. Our first processing is the Pultec Eq. I noticed with this mix that I could run into some trouble down the line trying to preserve a good dynamic range if I don't tame just slightly a bit of both the low end and the high end. So what I did with the Pultec is, I pushed the low frequency to 100, then I attenuated by 2 dB. Then on the attenuation select for the high frequency, I set it at 20K. I then went ahead to cut by 2 dB. I also pushed the bandwidth to the highest to get a broad bandwidth. I then increased the output slightly to make up for the loss gain. So this is what it sounds like.
Upset that you only think about me when you care about you. I'm kinda upset that you only care about me when you think about.
The next processing after the Pultec is this bad guy here, the Oxford inflator. This is one of a kind tool. I believe that if you've been around long enough, this is not new to you. On the inflator, I push the input by +3 dB, effect all the way up to 100%, the curve at 18.3 dB. I then reduce the output by -3 dB to make up for the initial +3 dB boost in the input. What the inflator does is, it practically inflates the sound as the name implies without you losing dynamic range. This is without
Upset that you only think about me when you care about you. I'm kinda upset that you only care about me when you think about you.
and with it.
Upset that you only think about me when you care about you. I'm kinda upset that you only care about me when you think about you.
It's also worth mentioning that the inflator came after the EQ. You see, the order of effects is very important. If we put the inflator before the EQ, we are going to get very different results. It's going to inflate the sound together with the unwanted frequencies. That's why it's ideal after the EQ, so we only inflate what was preserved with the EQ. After the inflator, we have this one plugin from UAD Multimedia. It's like a Swiss Army knife and I tend to use it a lot. However, on this mix, I didn't do too much with it. I increased the width down here and I pushed up the volume with this knob. I could have also used this push knob, which is some sort of a compressor, to gain more volume. As it compresses, it makes up for the loss gain at the same time. This works almost every time, except I intentionally didn't want no compression on this particular master. As you already know, anytime you compress, you actually trade off some dynamic range. So this is what the mix sounds like with the one plugin.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
So after the one plugin, which is the third step out of the 4, I then used a clipper. Yes, and I used standard clip. Standard clip is my favorite and most affordable clipper out here, guys. Those other ones are just overpriced for a clipper in my opinion. This does the job. So with standard clip, we push the mix a whole lot more without losing significant dynamic range. I used this algorithm here, the Soft Clip Pro. I then kept the clip level at -3 dB. Then I also pushed this soft clip saturator, and this is what it sounds like with it.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
You notice that I'm just slightly clipping the peaks and not really touching the body of the sound.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
As it chops off the peaks, it also inflates the sound. You can get more out of it by pushing this soft clip saturator.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
You see guys, very straightforward. From here, we can now comfortably introduce the limiter and confidently push it to -8 or -7 LUFS and still be certain that everything will sound decent. I used the ozone maximizer for the limiter and pushed it right up to 8 dB. This is without.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
And with it, you might want to reduce the volume before listening.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
Notice over here that we are hitting -8.7 LUFS. Just to track back everything we've done so far, we started with this.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
As I promised you guys, there was a surprise at the end of the video, which is actually a hint for the topic on our next video. So guys, would you imagine that the lead vocal on this mix you're listening to was processed with just 2 effects? I mean, obviously besides parallel processing like reverbs and delays. Yes, I'm going to show you guys the magic tool. So here's what we have guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to the manly Vox box. This is what it sounds like first without.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
And with.
On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being. On a normal level, you're supposed to treat me like human being.
So it's just the manly Vox box and a de-esser for the processing of the lead vocal. Imagine having just one plugin that can process your lead vocal to almost completion. The manly Vox box has that magic. I did compression with it, I did de-essing, and I did some EQing with it. So guys, on our next video, I'm going to review and break down every control on the manly Vox box as well as show you how to mix your vocals with it. That's it for today guys, hope you learned something new, and I also recommend you check out this video here in which I demonstrated how to add analog texture into your mixes. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and see you all in the next video. Take care guys.